Hello everyone. It seems it's time for another How video. The only video series where I talk over my typical 3 to 5 minute standard. So let's get started. Now, how Gamergate turned to shit. Oh, for those of you who don't know, Gamergate, that damn name that makes it sound like a dating website for gamers. I met my wife at Gamers. Fuck her. Anyway, Gamergate started out talking about the integrity of gaming journalists, trying to hold them accountable for their articles and statements that they put out. Like, say, a game company would pay a game reviewer to give a game a good score. Gamergate wanted to talk about issues of that nature and try to hinder it from happening, so in short, it was set up to protect the consumers who bought video games. Now, doesn't that seem like a noble goal? One that all gamers should be able to get behind. It's righteous, it's just, and a lot of other words that make you feel like a patriot. So now then, let's talk about how it all turned to shit. You see, this is a story with a lot of twists and turns, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. Of course, I'll add my own shit to it. You see, a female game developer named Zoe Quinn might have slept with some games journalist to get good press for her game. And when the internet found out, well, you can expect that they got a little bit angry and called into question the ethics of games journalists. Are they there to serve themselves or the public that they supposedly represent? Now you see, this is all well and good, holding someone accountable for their actions. But see, here's where things start to get fun. A while ago, Miss Anita Sarkeesian made a video saying how she would like to do videos based around the topic of how females are viewed in video games. Now, when this happened, a lot of people got angry because she dared to ask questions and wanted to start a debate around females in games. Now, she received a lot of hate and death threats and rape threats from crazy people. But these crazy threats gave Miss Anita the attention that she needed to stand upon a platform and get a foot in the door of the video games industry. But the reason I brought up Miss Sarkeesian is that we are going to see a beautiful maneuver from her in a minute. Now, at this time, Zoe Quinn is under the microscope, and so is the games media industry. But the key factor here is that Zoe Quinn is a female being oppressed because of her sexual activity in the games media industry. And who is a female looking to gain more attention in the gaming industry? Why, Miss Anita Sarkeesian. So just by her adding a few words, she has played a beautiful Queen's Gambit and jumped in on the Zoe Quinn thing, which at this time is just now known as Gamersgate. But of course, it's not just Zoe Quinn, because now that she is involved, that means that all the hate and the death threats that she was getting before, all of those crazy fuckers will now flood into Gamersgate like spreading a beautiful hate-filled disease. And thus now we have the beginning of our game. All the pieces are set. We have Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian with their opening Queen's Gambit versus the Gamersgate, which is already infected with the crazy anti-feminists and they don't even know about it. So as the pieces begin to move, we are opened up to a lovely bit of insanity. Now, to the credit of the Gamersgate followers, they began to dig up some information on how there is actually a lot of corruption in games media, journalists taking what is essentially bribes for exclusives and favorable coverage. But sadly, all of that will mean piss, as they have already been co-opted. You see, Gamergate decided that they didn't really want a spokesperson, that they didn't need to have one singular person to say, here, I represent Gamersgate and this is what we want. And this is a very sound strategy in a game. You fight in a way that your enemy isn't prepared to deal with. It's like an attack that comes from everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. But little could the main players of Gamergate know that a part of their group had already been infected and was about to venture off. And not having a spokesperson will end up hurting Gamersgate, because anti-Gamersgate now has a few speakers, one of whom will be Miss Anita Sarkeesian. Well, she certainly got herself into a nice situation now, didn't she? Say what you like about her. She knows how to play the game. But now is when the fun times truly begin, as multiple gaming websites began to run stories around how gamers are evil, gamers are bad people, and for some amazing reason, a lot of the GamerGate people couldn't figure out why a lot of gaming websites began to delete comments from concerned people about the state that the gaming media industry was in. And a wise statement of the past is, if you want to make enemies, try to change something. And that's exactly what GamersGate was trying to do. It's unlikely that they realized just how much they were trying to change, though. You see, most of GamersGate just wanted to have a discussion about ethics in gaming journalism and how they could work towards a better gaming environment for everyone, filled with lollipops and candy and all that shite. But to the gaming community, what they were looking at was not a friendly discussion. They were looking at pink slips, unemployment, career suicide. And a lot of these journalists have families who depend on them for their income. Now, let me ask you, who would you turn against? How many people would you fight in order to protect the stability of your family, your children? That's right. You'd probably fight everything and everyone in your path. And that's why major gaming websites will probably continue to talk about how GamersGate is terrible and run articles pushing the focus of GamerGate more into the attack on feminism rather than an attack on media corruption for which it began. Well, because doing that protects them and their families. Now, I will tell you right now that in a fight, you will usually try to change things so that the fight is always in your favor. And moderators deleting comments is basic in war. If you want to win a war, then the first thing you do is handle propaganda and censorship, tailoring the story to fit your needs. Now, as I said earlier, if you want to make enemies, try to change something. And GamerGate is trying to change business as usual at major gaming websites, PR firms, and big-ass publishers who very much like their ability to buy favorable content for their games. Now is around the time that Anita Sarkeesian starts to once again receive death threats. The great thing here is that Miss Anita had been receiving death threats long before GamerGate because she wanted to have a discussion about girls and games. But because those crazy bastards follow her everywhere, they have now attached themselves to games. So now she can attribute the death threats that she was getting before now to GamerGate. And once again, Miss Anita pulls a beautiful maneuver that in my eyes makes her look so lovely. As I said, she's smart. So as I said, like in chess, this would be more of a pawn storm, but only because GamerGate can't control their own pawns anymore because they've been infected with the anti-feminist that came over from Anita's side. But now, GamerGate has noticed that their pawns are out of control and they can't stop them. And why, you ask? Because unlike the opposition, GamerGate doesn't have a leader or a spokesperson. They are essentially playing chess with no king on the board. Sure, they can't really be targeted, but that also means that there's no focus point. So, what do you do when you don't have a leader and your pieces are in disarray? You see, GamersGate doesn't have that strong focal point to stand up and say that these death threats aren't coming from them. Bah, I probably need to stop referencing everything to board games like chess. Anyway, the last bit of fun times hasn't started yet, but I could probably tell you what's going to happen. That the anti-gamers are going to push even more into censorship and propaganda because this will soon spill over from just the forum posts and the Twitter updates to the mainstream media, a la your television news stations, and they will be talking on a national television about the terrible things GamersGate has done to oppress females with death and rape threats, which is so very smart because here we will have feminists playing the damsel in distress on television and not talking about corruption in game journalism, which is what Gamergate started out as. They will now talk about what they have turned Gamergate into, which is war against females. It's so fucking smart. And why is it smart? And that's because typically when you go on television to have a little conversation, you'd usually have a person from each side on the news to tell their side of the story. But unfortunately, Gamersgate decided not to have a spokesperson. So the only side that will get to go on television and tell their story is the anti-Gamergate side. And who is going to appear on national TV and tell the story of Gamergate to the nation? Why, probably none other than Miss Anita Sarkeesian. God, I love this woman. She's like my dream wife at this point. Bah, I need to stop blushing. Oh man, I've been talking too long. You see, this is why I hate doing how videos, because they require me to talk a lot longer than I like. I prefer 3 to 5 minute videos. But in case you might be wondering why Gamergate probably won't have a spokesperson in the future, well, that's because the person stupid enough to be that guy right now will probably have to deal with all of the bullshit that Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn had to deal with. You see, just like there are crazy anti-feminists who are pushing death threats toward Anita Sarkeesian, there are crazy feminists. And at the moment that someone sticks their head out of the Gamergate hole that they've dug themselves into, then that person better be in a good situation in his life, because they are going to dig into that person's life and open it up for the world to see. So any Twitter or Facebook posts of the past that can come back to haunt him, oh, they will. And if he has a job, then he better be prepared to lose it, as the feminists will call his job and get him fired. You see, that is the one good thing about Gamersgate truly, is that no one is a target, because now that this shit has gotten bad, if they want to get back into the fight, sadly, now someone is going to have to stand up and take a bullet. But don't worry, all I'm saying is just pure speculation. And anyway, Gamersgate, it could be worse. Someone could show up on national television claiming to be part of Gamersgate and going by the nickname Mustard.